How's everybody doing? Tinkering with Harleys. I want to thank all of you who have subscribed. If you're watching these videos and enjoying them, by all means, please subscribe. And if you're liking the videos, give them a thumbs up. Keep the comments coming. Keep the questions coming. They're great. I answer every one of them that come along. And I know there was a delay this past week on questions. I guess Google or YouTube or somebody was having problems, so I didn't get all the questions that were asked of me right away. I wasn't ignoring you guys. I just didn't get them till later. So I do answer all of them. So moving on. Last video we did was on spring tensioners for the 99 to 06 twin cams. And we just went over it briefly. And today's video, I'm going to show you how to change them. Now, it's not the video I wanted to do because I don't have a bike with those spring tensioners in them here. I don't have one coming in to be replaced in the near future, and I don't have a spare motor that I can do it. But we're going to give you a general idea and we're going to explain how to do it. So, going forward, you're going to need a few things before you undertake this. The first thing you need to have is a service manual for your bike. Do not attempt to do this without a service manual. You will regret it. There's a lot of things involved with this. They're easy to change, but there's a lot of things that are involved. The service manual is a huge help. It can take you through step by step. And there are a couple of other things that you need. You need certain tools for it. So let me show you what they. This one here removes the tension on the spring tensioner. You don't necessarily need this. I've done one without them, and I want to tell you, it was a pain in the ass. This makes it much easier. Second thing you need is pins, because you have to pin that tensioner back. Now, they don't necessarily have to be these pins. You can use a good strong nail, a piece of steel wire, just as long as it's got strength to it, because the tensioners, the springs in those tensioners are very strong, and if you put a weak aluminum nail or something like that in there, it's going to bend it, and you're going to have a hell of a time getting it out. And the next thing you're going to need is one of these. Now, you can either have a magnet, and this is for the lifters. You can get a magnet if you want to buy one, which holds both lifters at the same time, or you can use one of these. Now, that is actually one of these. It's a paper clip, but you want a bigger one than this. You want bigger arms. And what these do is they hook into your lifters so the lifters don't fall down. So, that aside, that we've covered that, we'll move on. Okay, the first thing you want to do, you want to jack your bike up, get it straight and level, drain the oil, take the front exhaust pipe off, and then take your cam cover off. And when you take your cam cover off, this is what you're going to see. If it's a spring-loaded, this is what you're going to see right here. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you can see that tensioner against the timing chain. And that's what you're going to be removing. But before we go there, the way I like to do it, the next step is to go to your push rods. You have to make sure what kind of push rods you have. If you have stock push rods or you have adjustable push rods. Now, take the push rod covers off, pull the slide down, take the top out, and then lift the push rod cover up, and then look at your push rods. If you have solid push rods with no adjusters on the bottom, it's stock. So there's a different procedure for removing them. You have to take your rocker boxes off. You got to unbolt your tank and lift it or remove it. Take your rocker arms off and then pull those push rods out from the top of the head. If you have adjustables, you just have to lift the push rods up, and you can see in this picture, you can hold them up with paper clips and a rubber band, or you can use a clothespin, whatever, and then back the adjusters off, and then just lift the push rods up, and then take the push rods and tubes right out with it. So they're out of the way. So then once you've got that done, you can go back to your cam case. So what you're going to see is, in the picture before, you're going to see the adjuster and the timing gear and the pinion gear. The pinion gear is a small one on the bottom that actually runs off your crank, and the timing gear up on top actually drives your camshafts. So what you do is you take that tool and you put it on that adjuster and you put it back, roll it back to take the tension off the chain, and then you pin it. And I'm going to show you how to do that when we finish getting through all this stuff. Now, once you've got that pinned, you can remove the timing gear and the pinion gear with the chain. Now, if you're going to reuse the chain, mark it so that it goes back on the same way that it comes off. If you're not going to use the same chain, you're using a new one, doesn't make any difference. Now, I like to use little ties, like from a loaf of bread. I snake them through there and I just thread them on there. And, because sometimes when you lay something down, something slips out and you might get the wrong side of the chain. So you always know which side is going where. So you take those off, and this is what it looks like once you remove the timing chain and the timing gear and pinion gear. Now, in this picture, you can see the timing gear is gone, and you can see there's 6 bolts that hold the cam plate on. And if you look at the cam plate, the cam on the right side has a snap ring. Okay, that once you get it on the bench, you're going to have to remove it because you're going to have to take this cam plate out. Now, if you look at the red arrows down around the pinion, those are the bolts that hold your oil pump on. So what you do with this is you've already got the cam tensioner out of the way, and you can remove it on the bike or you can remove it on the bench. It's actually easier on the bike because you have leverage. So you got that out of the way. You take those 4 bolts out for your oil pump, and they are the ones that are marked in red. And you just set those aside and keep them separate. I mean, you want to make sure this is right. And then you take the 6 bolts out of the cam plate. Now we get to where you use the paper clip that I showed you. Now what you do with this paper clip, you have to sharpen them at the end. Take a little grinder and just grind them just a little bit. And what they do, they go into the grooves in the lifters. And that's what this looks like. And you can see they hold those lifters. And the reason you do this is when you pull your cam plate out with the cams in it, the lifters don't fall down through into the cam chest. Because you don't want that to happen. I mean, you can take the lifters out if you want, but you just have to mark them to make sure they go back in the same way they came out. You can't mix and match those. So once you have the cam plate out and you have it on the bench, this is what you are going to see. Okay, now this is your cams. Now, and you can see the tensioner on the top there. It's circled in red, pressing down on the chain, and that keeps it, from having any slack in it or anything. And you want to use that same tool that I showed you and rotate that and pin that. That will then take all the pressure off the chain. Now, the next thing you do is that snap ring you saw on the one camshaft, and that's right there. And that's the one on the right. You take that snap ring off, and now you can remove the camshafts, because you got to remove the camshafts in order to replace that tensioner. Now, once you got that cam tension, the cams out, you do the same thing again with that chain. You mark it. So especially if you're going to reuse it, and you set your cams on the side. Now, if you notice in this picture, there's timing marks on those cams, and they face each other, the little dots. When you reinstall them, they have to get reinstalled the same way, snap ring that you use. So once you've got those timing marks aligned, you're good to go. You put the snap ring on there, release the cam tensioner, it comes down on the tension, and those cams will not move. And now you are ready to reinstall it. So that's basically how you do this. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to use that tool on a cam plate that I have, and it'll show you how much tension is on these things. Now, if you've never done this before, I know it sounds a little intimidating, but it really isn't that bad. It sounds intimidating, but as long as you follow the steps, you will not have a problem. And that's why I say you need a service manual, because that service manual makes all the difference. It really does. When you start lining the timing marks off, if you're one tooth off, your bike is going to run terrible. It's going to backfire, pop, all kinds of nasty things. So you want to make sure all that's right. So now I'll show you how to use that tool. Now, this is a cam plate. This is one that I had laying around. And if you notice, there's no bearings. The bushings are all gone out of it. So this is just for demonstration purposes only. Now, if you notice, you see right here, this is a pin. That's what the tensioner goes on the front, and the tensioner goes on in the back. So we're going to show you how to do this. Also, you see little holes here and a little hole there. This is where that pin slides through to hold this in place, so it takes all the tension off the chain. And on the back, the same thing over here. And this hole down here is where the right angle of the chain tensioner goes in and locks in. Now, if you look at these chain tensioners, you can see they are both different. This one is kind of opened up. This is the one for the cams. This is the front one. It doesn't have those. It has a hole through it. So you can't mix them up, so you don't have to worry about that. So the way we do this, let me swing this around here. Okay, so you slip it on there. You see the right angle on the tensioner. You put that in that hole and then line it up over that post. This is going to show you how strong that these springs are. You take this tool and you put it over it like that. And then you can either use an open end wrench or a socket. I usually use an open end wrench for it because socket sometimes has a tendency to block that hole. Now, this one is, the front one is kind of tough to do, especially on the bench. That's why, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it on the bench. That's why I say take it off on the bike, put it back on the bike, because it is a little bit tough. So you put your wrench on there. And you just turn it like that. And as you can see, I need a third hand. This is why you do this one on the bike, because this is a pain in the butt. Get that one in there like that. It's in there. So you can see what a pain in the butt that is. Now, there is also snap rings that go on these. When you take this one off on the bike, you take the snap ring off after you release the tension on this. Now, I'm using the used ones. Now I'm going to show you how to do the back one, or the one for the cams. Now, this is equally as easy, or, well, this one is actually easier. Right here, this hole, and this right angle, it goes in that hole, and then it slips over the post, like so. You put your tool on there, and have your pin, and you do the same thing with this one. Now, this one is a hell of a lot easier than the front one. And you get it lined up over that hole. And that's it. Now they're both in. Now, you can do both of them on the bench if you would like. I would rather do the front one while it's on the bike, because this one's a bear. These springs are very strong. So after you've got the new ones in, and that's essentially what I just did, but I'm using old ones. You put your cams back in, you get the timing marks set up the way they're supposed to be set up, like that. And the splined one, this one here, goes in like that. And that's what it would look like. Now, all the shims, bearings, races, everything's out of this, bushings. And this is the one that has the C-clip on it. And it also has a washer. So when you put this in there, you put that C-clip over it, or a snap ring over it, and then you turn it over because it won't go anywhere. And as you see, these timing marks, once they're lined up, I mean, you can do this with it and make sure the chain doesn't fall off like that just did. Once these timing marks are lined up, you can turn it like that, and they're not going to move. They're always going to come back to being lined up. So once that snap ring's in there, it's going to hold them in place. So then you come around to the back again, and for argumentative sake, the cams are in here. You've got the chain in here now. You put the tool back on here. And just put a little pressure on it, slip that out, and slowly put that down. And when it hits the chain, it will tighten the chain, and those cams will not move. Now, in this case, the cams aren't there. This is what it would look like if you were removing it. And that's all there is to it. So that is a quick explanation and demonstration on how you do it. Now you put everything back together in reverse order with new gaskets, things like that. Again, this is not exactly what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to do it, but I don't have a job coming in here that has them, and I don't have an engine sitting around. So seeing I got the response that I got last week off the last video, I kind of figured I'd follow up with something that would give you a general idea, and that's what I'm trying to do, is give you a general idea. And I know this seems a little bit intimidating, especially if you've not done it before, but it's really not. Once you've done it once, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. So I hope this video helps somebody. I hope you've enjoyed it, and until the next time, everybody be safe out there.